Welcome to the first episode of Titan Mind. I'm your host, Ali. On this channel, we are embarking on a mission to demystify the human mind and break the stigma surrounding mental illness. We'll be traveling across the globe from the UK and Canada to institutions like Yale to interview the leading experts in psychiatry. Our goal is simple: to provide you with the clinical insights into mental disease and practical tools to improve your daily mental wellness. Joining us for our inaugural episode is a close friend of mine. He's a dedicated psychiatrist based in Indiana. Please welcome our first guest, Shahed Kamal. Shahid, please introduce yourself in your own words.
Thank you, Ali, for your kind introduction. As you said, my name is Shahed Kamal, and I'm a board certified psychiatrist, presently living in Indiana. Of course, mental health is a topic which is very dear to me and close to me. That's what I do. I've been a physician and around for quite some time. I have worked and studied in many different countries. In our today's talk, most of my opinion is personal opinion, and this is more geared towards general public, common man, to give them first-hand informations. It is not supposed to be some professional advice or legal advice. It is supposed to increase awareness in common people about how our mind works, what is the physiology of psychology, and give them the basic tools to understand how mind works and how psychiatric diseases are caused and how they can be treated. So we are planning to do a series of episodes. In first episode, we will concentrate more on how our mind works. I will try to be very simple. I think in many ways, brain and computer work alike. As we know, there is no body organ which is called psychology. If you dissect the body, you will find brain, and brain is the seat of psychology. Just to make it helpful for understanding, I would say that our brain is a hardware, while psychology or mind is a software which resides in our brain. When a child is born, his or her brain is like a new computer without any data. And after the birth, our five sensations start to working, and the brain starts collecting data from the five senses of sensation. It may be a little bit controversial also, because there are some people who claim that while the fetus is in uterus and is still developing, they may still be able to sense some sensations. Or it is a folklore story also, that if you put the picture of a very handsome person or a beautiful woman, maybe the child may turn like that. Or if you play music, especially classical music, the child may have more talent in that field.
In
However,
math, like they say, math, if you play classical music, then it helps people in the math, right?
actually, what you are saying is very important and interesting, because in my opinion, the mysteries of the world lies in two things. One is music and another one is math.
Let's begin with the foundations of psychiatry, and let's begin with the definition. To kick things off, how do you professionally define mental health? Is it simply the absence of illness, or is there a specific structure to what makes a mind healthy?
As I said, that mental health is a broad term, and it uses any dysfunctioning or disease of the brain. It could be neurological and it could be psychological as well, because brain performs both the functions. In terms of neurological function, it controls our nerves, it controls our body movement, it controls our endocrine gland. it control our heart rate. That is why it is very important to understand the concept of mind body unity, because mind can influence your body and your body can influence your mind, vice versa. Therefore, a healthy mind is equal to healthy body, and a healthy body is equal to healthy mind. So they are very closely related to each other. To understand the function of brain, you have to understand that brain performs multiple function. As I mentioned, that it performs neurological function, and it is the sensory center of the whole body. The brain is constantly receiving stimulus from our internal environment and external environment. If there is any noxious stimuli, the brain will sense that pain sensation and remove our limb, which is near fire. So these are neurological function. It also controls our inner environment, like our hormonal level. As we all know, the connection between stress and brain, we know that during stress, we have a high cortisol secretion, which prepares us for stress, for fear or right reaction. So brain is the master organ, and it controls our body and our thoughts. Now there are different set of functions which is performed by our brain, which are called psychological function, such as control or regulation of emotions, such as our cognition, such as perceptions, such as our general sense of well being. And then it performs some higher function like thinking and metaphors and how it is interpreted. Among other function is our cognition and memory. So brain is the seat, and psychology or mind is a software, so as to say app, residing in the brain, which starts developing at the time of birth, and it continues to grow or it continues to change over a period of time. Therefore, a same person may be physically same, but that person may be a different person psychologically after 10, 15, 20 years. And that is through adaptability, and that is through gaining more knowledge, and so on. I will stop here for a while. And
let's talk more about psychiatry and its evolution over time. So, psychiatry has changed so much over the last century. Looking at
exactly.
looking at where we were 50 years ago versus today, what is the most significant shift in how we treat patients, and where do we see the field heading in the next decade?
I think it is a very interesting question, and everybody would like to have an answer and is following that. To start with, as you said, it is important to know the history of evolution of psychology. Psychology initially was practiced mostly by physicians and mostly by neurology. So we know that Sigmund Freud himself was a neurologist. And man has always been curious to find out the secrets of our brain and to find out how we think and how do we do different things. And so even from the very early times in early civilizations, Greeks, Romans, Arabs, different people have their own interpretation, and they try to understand how it works. Unfortunately, the foundation of knowledge was not that great at that time, and people got little frustrated also. Eventually, around 18th century, psychiatry and neurology, they bifurcated, and neurology became a field of medicine where you can find the reasons for the disease. For example, if you have a stroke or you have a brain trauma, or if you have something which could be explained rationally or in medical terms. And what psychiatry got was diseases which could not be explained. At that point, our knowledge was very limited. Psychiatric diseases are usually they are caused by hormonal dysregulation or at a micromolecular level, which could not be seen by naked eye or by microscope or could not be explained. And even as it stands today, in spite of the enormous advances in medical sciences, we don't have effective tools to make psychiatric diagnosis. The recent brain scans, the developments in a different type of brain scans, like CT scan, MRI, functional MRI, radioisotope studies, they have revolutionized our understanding of the brain functioning and psychiatric functioning as well. But still, we don't have lab tests which will tell us what is the diagnosis. One of the most important thing is to diagnose the psychiatric pathology correctly. And that is how DSM, which is an abbreviation of for Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, developed. And that is why, and that's how DSM, which is an abbreviation for Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, was developed around 60s. It is a description of psychiatric diseases, everything about psychiatric diseases, how they are evolved, and what are the manifestations and what are the common characteristics on which almost the whole psychiatry field agrees, and these are standard. And therefore, it is the language of psychiatrists, and there are many checks and balances, and it is reviewed every few years. So, starting with DSM 1, which was, I don't know, I have not seen it myself, it was even before my time. It may be 2 or 3 pages. Then came DSM 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and it has turned into a thick book. So, if you want to know the clinical manifestation of any psychiatric disease, for example, schizophrenia, and the types of schizophrenia, and what are the symptoms and signs of schizophrenia, and what are the requirements for diagnosing somebody with schizophrenia, and why you can't diagnose somebody with schizophrenia, what are the checks and balances, what is to be ruled in and what is to be ruled out. So now slowly we have evolved into a common language which everybody understands, so as to say that in other fields of medical are so advanced because they have more use or application of technology. For example, you take a chest x-ray to any physician in United States or in the world, and the doctor will say it's right lobar pneumonia because I can see it. It's quite obvious. There is no.
Well, you're going to get fMRI and other things too, right? So
Exactly. It is helping it to the stage that it is helping document our functioning, our thought pattern, which part of our brain is activated. And for example, how it differs from the other person. There has been experiments in universities where people are shown different movies eliciting different emotions, and they are studied through functional MRIs. Like a horror story will elicit what type of chemicals or what type of reaction or what part of the brain lights up. So we can match, and we can in many ways know exactly, like the functional map. You can map all the brain and their functions quite confidently at this time. And the future holds a lot of great advancements to come yet. I would also like to go ahead. I think you are.
Yeah, I was going to say that Paul Allen, the Microsoft co-founders, he funded this Brain Institute where they're mapping the whole brain, all the functions everywhere in the brain. So that will be phenomenal when it's done.
If you remember, in United States, sometime back, we had a decade of brain, or there were a lot of studies going on. It is a very exciting time, actually. And in my opinion, field of medicine itself has evolved through different stages. At one time, during ancient times, we had to study the body as a whole. Then we went to tissues or organs. We are identifying and recognizing what are the different tissues and what are their function or organs. And we are at a level where we know exactly how different body organs, liver, kidney, heart, except brain. We are moving in that, but we are not there yet.
I think there's an X price to have a Star Trek like medical with a massive spectrometer built into like a device like your phone, which will be amazing.
Which will
Anyway, let's turn to the debate between biology and psychology. People often debate nature versus nurture. In your practice, how do you balance the biological aspects like brain chemistry with the psychological aspects like a person's life experience and environment?
I think it is a great question and it is a very important question. But there was one thing which was left unsaid while I was finishing, uh, question, that, moving now from organ and tissues to cells. And we now know that every cell has its own field. It's like a galaxy. So every cell, we are moving our quest for knowledge to cellular level, and we are getting a lot of information, and we will be able to find out the causes of many diseases at a cellular level. Actually, when I was talking about the bifurcation of psychiatry and neurology, it was an artificial bifurcation. And I am of the opinion, and there are many of the opinion, that psychiatry and neurology should merge again and become a special medical field, neuropsychology. And they should be treated more as a strict medical field. There was a concept of biopsychosocial. Biopsychosocial, that means factors which influence mental illnesses, are comprised of three factors: biological factors, social factors, and environmental factors. I think that all these three factors are important. Nothing particular to psychiatry or mental health. In every field, even if you have an eye disease and you are homeless, that is going to affect you. So we, psychiatry as a profession, we identify too closely with those factors, and now there is a need to move more in the direction of being a medical field. The saying in that we are all product of our past experiences. So when life begins, a lot of things which are beyond our control. The mere factor where you are born can determine your future in many different ways. I'll give you an example. For example, if a person is born where dad is in prison and mom is a drug addict, as opposed to another person who is born to a family where mother is a dentist and dad is a school teacher. Now, none of us choose our parents. It is just, chances to grow so-called more normally or be more successful in life. And why? So I would like to give you an example. If someone brings a plant sapling or a seed and put it in the ground and then forgets it, can you expect that seed or plant to grow and bring beautiful flowers? No. You need to take care of that by giving water on intervals. It has to be exposed to sunshine. If you put some fertilizer, even better. So the same analogy applies on human beings. So the plant, in order to grow, needs certain optimal condition. Similarly, when a child is born, the child to grow needs certain optimal condition. Now, when a child is born, as we talked earlier, our five sensations start working, and the child starts to learn about the world. And there are certain optimal requirement for the child to grow in a more gentle way. Child is born, the child grows in many dimensions. He or she grows physically in terms of weight and height. He or she grows spiritually. He or she grows cognitively. he or she learns about the world, what the world is about. He or she learns the language. He or she learns how to regulate their emotions, and they do it all through their environment. That is why your initial ages of development are very important. And as I said, there are things which are beyond your control because you don't choose your family. I once read somewhere that even negligence is a form of abuse. So, how a child is reared, how a child is taken care of, it will predict how this person is going to function later on in life. Now,
Not,
biology is very important.
yeah, not just that. You know what I was shocked to learn? In America, your zip code is the primary, the main predictor of your life expectancy. How long you will live is determined by your zip code. How strange is that? Because zip code tells you a lot about, what school you went to, what socioeconomic background are you, how educated you are. And so it's a direct contributor to your life expectancy, which encompasses your mental health and physical health, everything, right?
I you have a lot of interest in environmental issues. I would like to mention at this point that if you are born in I don't want to name any city, but if you are born in a city where there is high pollution rate, you are going to live at least 10 years less than if your environment is much better, if you are breathing in fresh air. So it is very important to understand that in many ways, your future is determined where you are born, not even the country, even on which street you are born, even in same city,
Which
which
zip
neighborhood.
code you're born in.
Exactly, as you said, and how the function. In any case, it is a great subject to know what can we do to prevent psychological pathology in our nation and in our children, and what can we do, what interventions would benefit for the children to grow in a healthy mature adult. There are interventions which can even reduce violence in the society, which has become a big problem in our country.
And that leads me to our next question, which is the why of mental illness. What are the primary triggers or causes of mental illness that you see most often? And for those watching who might be struggling, how does an untreated mental illness typically affect a person's health and social life and physical health?
Another great question. Psychology, said the seat of psychological function is our brain. Now, there are different factors, there are multiple factors which causes or contributes toward the development of psychiatric illness. And I think both psychological factors and biological factors are involved in anything and everything, because I'm not very reductionist, but even our thoughts, everything is biological in nature. Even when we think, even therapy is biological in nature. Doing talk therapy or biofeedback or doing psychotherapy, that is eventually biological in nature because they.
You're changing something at the molecular level in your thought process or the neurons firing or something, right?
Exactly, exactly. It is multifactorial, as I said, where you are born, what is the genetic history, if there is any biological illness which runs in the family. For example, bipolar illness has a strong hereditary component. Most of the time, it is in families. So if you see someone who has been diagnosed with bipolar illness, the first question you want to ask that are there other family members who are affected with any psychiatric illness? So even been experiments like identified twins were separated at very early age and they grew in different environment. Of course, the child who has the same biological propensity is much less likely to develop psychiatric illness if growing up was less stressful. On the other hand, the kid who was growing in a stressful environment is much more likely to develop psychiatric illness. So it's not carrying just the genes, it is the expression of the genes which under circumstances precipitates. It may remain, but like bipolar illness, there is more likelihood of developing or precipitating that illness. When I diagnose somebody with a psychiatric illness, every DSM 4 diagnosis in your mind, you can divide them into two. What percentage is biological weight and what is psychological weight? So in your mind, you determine that what is more heavier weight this person is carrying, either it is biological or psychological, although as I said, everything is biological. But the problem is, now at this point of time, I would like to give you an example which will actually sum it up very nicely. Suppose you are working on a factory production line. Factory may be producing anything. It could be a camera, it could be a car, it could be anything. At the end of the factory production line, there is a quality control supervisor. And he or she has a checklist of product is supposed to meet the criteria. And if it meets the criteria, then it goes for packaging, it goes to for marketing, and so on. But if the criteria is not met, then what he or she will do will put a cross and either send it for recycling or junk. Now, if you apply the same analogy in human being, there are a lot of people who are actually damaged human beings. They're damaged human being. Actually, in my mind, I have not read it anywhere, and I don't think DSM justifies to this, although American Psychiatric Association is not very kind to anyone who diverges from their opinion. In DSM, there is a diagnosis called post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. But for PTSD, the stress should be life-threatening. You have to experience a life-threatening event. But a lot of people, I think, when you see psychiatric patient, either inpatient or outpatient in different clinics or community mental health center, the majority of the patients are damaged human being. And in my opinion, I have not read it anywhere, they constitute 60 to 65% of mentally ill people. They are damaged human being. Now you can't recycle them. As they grow older, they come into real life and they live their life, but they are to live with many deficits, which deprives them of succeeding in life. Anxiety is one of them. You don't know how much is the burden of anxiety to our society. It is estimated that every fourth or fifth person in United States, the prevalence rate is 20%, 25%. But fortunately, the majority of it is mild. But it can be mild, moderate, severe, incapacitating. And this is under-recognized and under-treated because people have always seen them anxious and they will say, hey, John Doe, he's like that. He's supposed to act like that. He has always acted like that. But they don't know the same guy, if properly recognized his problem, that anxiety is pulling him down. And if his anxiety is treated and he's rehabilitated, he has the full potential to grow into a successful human being, in having a good family, having a good job. But unfortunately, you would be surprised how successful the treatment of anxiety is.
Well, finally, let's turn to an actionable wellness. Before we wrap up, what is one Titan habit, a small daily action that anyone can start today to strengthen their mental resilience?
Don't take life too seriously. We are not in control. Always remember that, and always remember your blessing. Be happy. I am remembering a TV serial, used to watch them when they were small. And there was a character, that girl, Michelle. I think it was Save with the Bell. And she always used to say, be happy. And actually, don't take things seriously and your blessing, and keep hope, and don't compare yourself with other people. I would like to say something, the population is more than 8 billion. So actually, we have 8 billion different models in this world. Not every human being is same. If you apply the same thing to cars, we have 8 billion different cars with different, so don't compare one person to person. Every person is different. We have different genes, we different blood group,
And
we
different
have
experiences.
different,
Different,
exactly.
like you were saying, even have different experiences. Your brain's the key connectome is different. Is different.
Yeah, exactly. And besides that, our fingerprints are different, facial features are different. Is a different person to consider. We are united in we are one, like it's like a drop in a sea. These
And
different and a water drop.
That your DNA is different. From the moment you're born, moment you die, constantly your cells are dividing, right? And every
Yes,
time they divide, there's some mutation coming. So all over your body, you have different DNA. So even though we all are, we have human DNA, but it's different because you have different mutations.
Yes, so that is why the concept of average is very important. For every physiological function, we have to measure the normal range, and by normal we say that 50% of the population fall there or nearby. So
We
your
create
heart
the
rate,
normal range, and
exactly,
then the one standard deviation or two standard deviations from the mean.
But unfortunately, we have not been able to determine the normal range of psychological function. There are some in health practices, there are testing done by psychologists, or if you are a good clinician, you can you take a good history and take with your what you observe. So it is subjective and objective. And in psychiatry, it is most important to get collateral information. The other thing is that psychiatric diagnosis can change also over the period of time. Well, it is there is a sea of, we can't summarize everything in
Next time,
one.
we'll talk about more topics next time.
But I would like to say in last that if people like it, we will continue to cover different subject. And once again, it is for lay public. We will greatly appreciate if people send us questions.
Yes,
And
please write your questions in the below.
Exactly. And we will answer. And maybe the road we will keep half our time, we will split it into answering questions and picking up. It is people like it, then we can continue to do it.
Yeah, and please suggest topics.
But I think there is a great need, and we are serving the vacuum and the need. And I think it will be a great contribution for both of us and others who participate in it towards humanity and towards total welfare of human beings.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And please go and listen to that song. Don't worry, be happy now.
Agree.
Thank you. Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Subscribe and tell you about Titan Minds. Thank you.